for those of you that have one dog and are considering getting a second or even a third dog, okay? So you might be getting a new puppy, or you might be getting 2 new puppies, which again, that's a whole nother conversation. But if you're thinking about introducing another dog into your home, it's really important that you consider that initial meet and that process of introducing that second dog into your home. So I always urge people to think about the dog that you have as your primary concern and introducing that dog and the second dog in a very strategic manner. So the first thing I would suggest is to crate train. Okay, crate train for me is a real mandatory for all my dogs. It helps with introduction of new dogs. It helps with keeping them safe if they're ever injured and they need crate rest. It's a secure place for them. It's comfortable. It teaches them my house rules. It ensures that they aren't getting into unnecessary mischief when they are puppies. And it means that I can introduce them into my home and how I want them to be in my home in a safe way without them getting reinforced for inappropriate behavior. Okay. So first and foremost, consider crate training your dog. If you have a dog and it isn't crate training, you're thinking of using a second dog, then I would desperately urge you to consider crate training them ASAP, so that when you bring your second dog in, that dog has a bolt hole, it has somewhere safe, and vice versa. So your new dog can also be crate trained, so that you can put the puppy or the new dog into that crate, so it's safe, and you can do staged introductions. Okay, so that's the first thing I'd consider: crate train your dog. Second thing is how you introduce that second dog in. Okay, so my preference is, whenever I bring a dog into my home, and I have a lot of dogs into my home for residential training, I always allow a 24 to 48 hour period of decompression for that dog coming into my home. So that means there's a temporary restriction between the access they have with each other. The reason being is that I want that new dog to first and foremost be comfortable in my home and allow them a little bit of time to suss out their environment, see the things and the sights and sounds. Especially if you're getting a puppy, there is a huge culture shock for that puppy to come into your new home. There's new smells, there's new sights, there's new sounds, there's new people. There can be a level of trauma, and if you add into that a second dog or third dog, depending on how many you have in your home, that can increase that stress rate for that dog or that new puppy tenfold. So we want to be considerate of that. Now, there is always a little bit of give and take on that window. Some of my dogs have met dogs on the first day and they're very good at reading dogs. If they're younger and they don't have that skill set, then I might hold them back for a little bit longer. But certainly for the dogs that I have now, with the exception of my youngest puppy, if I brought a new dog into my home, relatively comfortable introducing them, certainly very quickly, because of the experiences they've had and how they understand to read dogs in general, okay? But be mindful, your dogs might not have that skill set, and it's really important that you allow them an adjustment period. Just allow them some time to settle in before you introduce them to your second dog. The reason being, if that new dog is acting in an apprehensive way, fearful way, that's going to potentially cause apprehension with your dog that's currently in the house, your current dog, or your current dogs, and therefore it may cause that initial meeting to be one of tension, and we don't want that, okay? We want a nice smooth introduction. So think about just allowing a little bit of, and even if you have baby gates or have a crate up or an X-Pen that you can put your one dog in, let's say a puppy, we're going to focus on introducing a puppy. Put your puppy in that pen, your other dog can approach them at a set distance. There's no actual physical contact. So they can meet briefly, but not necessarily having close, unsolicited physical contact at first. Be careful about that first introduction, okay? As the process goes on, as the new dog gets into your home for longer periods of time, you can then systematically introduce them. Obviously, always think about safety first and foremost, because not only safety for your puppy or the new dog, but also for your older dog. You don't know if it's a rescue dog, you don't know if it's got a history of inappropriate behavior, you don't know if it's a negative experience towards other dogs. So we have honoured the dog that we have in our home, and we're starting to introduce that second dog, and we're thinking about having safety protocols in place, whether it be crates and baby gates, etc., around the home, so that we can create safe spaces for that new dog to be introduced. Over time, we're going to allow those two dogs together, and we're going to do it in a nice manner. My preference when I introduce my dogs is to go somewhere where there is space. Either dog wants to move away, they have sufficient space to do, not an enclosed environment. The reason being is that if one dog feels fearful or apprehensive, I don't want that dog to feel trapped and therefore act inappropriately. So it's really important that we find a location in our home, garden, etc., or if you've got space in your living room, somewhere where that one dog can move away from the other, okay? So we're going to introduce them and we're going to observe the dog's body language, okay? We're going to take a note of their overall, whether the dog is comfortable, okay? Without going into the details of reading dogs per se, we want to look over, take an overview of that dog and see if each dog is comfortable. Look at their tail, look at their ears, look at their mouth, look at their posture, look at if they're giving the dog a hard glare, if they're starting to curl their lip, if they're avoiding the other dog, if they're looking away, if they're trying to move away from the other dog. Again, be considerate of those things so that we can ensure that their initial introduction is smooth. If the dog is showing signs of being uncomfortable, we want to separate them and do it in small bites, okay? So start off with just literally a couple of minutes and gradually increase that time. I like to, when I have multiple dogs and I'm introducing them, I like to create communal events. So for example, one of the big things is taking them out for a little walk. So if I have a puppy and I have my older dog, I'll take them to somewhere where there's lots of inviting smells so they can do things together socially. So for example, I take my older dogs to a wooded area. They'll go off for a walk first, expel some energy. Again, if I'm bringing a puppy in, I'll be very cautious about my puppies running with my older dogs and obviously injuring themselves. So my older dogs will be a little bit more fatigued. And then I will bring my younger dog in to an area where they're likely to go off and sniff and invest and show interest in the environment. The idea being is that hopefully both dogs or all the dogs will do that and start to form a social connection. So there's a commonality with what they're doing. So they'll start to synchronize almost over time. They'll start to go to the same smells, go to the same locations, investigate the same things, scent mark over each other, etc., etc. So they're starting to form a connection. Once I've done that, and again, depending on the puppy and depending on the dog would dictate how quickly I move through this process. And with some dogs, if they're really fearful or worried, I would take longer. If they're more confident, obviously you can move through this process a little bit quicker. But at all times, monitoring both dogs' body language. You're monitoring the new dog that comes into your home, if that dog's comfortable, and you're monitoring the dog that was already there. Once I've done my introduction, over time, I'm obviously educating my second dog, my new dog, hopefully with the skills that my first dog has. So there is definite things that you want to teach your dog. So skills that will allow you to create control, skills that will allow you to create focus, skills that will allow you to distract the dog. And you want to do this obviously away from the second or third dog, depending on how you want to do it individually, so that you can ask your dog to hold a controlled position. You can get your dog to come back and focus on you when you want to. You can call your dog away from a distraction. All that training you want to do in preparation for your second dog. When you teach that first dog those skills, you want to make sure that you are adding duration to each of those skills so the dog can hold that position, for example, a sit wait, whilst you deal with your second dog. Or if you've got a puppy, your puppy might be picking up something that you don't want, so you can ask your first dog to wait, go and rescue the puppy and so forth. So what you're doing is taking the challenge of dealing with two dogs out of the equation. Now you only have to deal with one. So if you're walking your dogs, for example, if I'm walking my dogs and I have 10 dogs, my puppy, who's the least trained out of all that dog, and the puppy picks something I don't want to, I can get all my other dogs to wait. My cue is wait there, which means stop where you are, and I can deal with the puppy. So now I don't have to monitor my other dog's behavior. I can just solely focus on my puppy, and then I can release all the dogs off and they can move and do as they will. So that way, it doesn't mean that I'm now having to watch all my dogs and where they are. I'm just focusing on the dog that is needing the most support and needs the most training, okay? So it's worth investing in your first dog, your dog's training, so that you can deal with your second dog with ease and you can integrate them and you can have control. Second thing you want to do is be able to redirect the dog, send the dog somewhere. So for example, again, if I'm dealing with my second dog and I need to move my dog out of a space, I can say to the dog, go to bed. My cue is move, which means move to an area. I can redirect the dog. I can send it to go and lie down. I can send it to go and wait somewhere. So I've got control, so I can manipulate where my dog is to either create distance. So for example, if my second dog or my new dog, shall we say, is causing issues with the first dog, I can redirect the first dog out of the environment or the space so that I can gain control over the second dog. When you have dogs, it's really important that you have individual skills for all the dogs, and you want to have skills for all the dogs so that they all will listen to. So for example, a recall cue, my cue for all my dogs is ear or get ear, which means everybody, ear means come over, come to me. Get here means everybody walk with me, okay? So those two cues tell my dogs, all my dogs, the information, and they're obviously taught individually, and then they are taught with a second dog and a third dog and so forth, okay? You also want to have cues that are specific for that dog. So, for example, if you had all your dogs in a sit and you only wanted one dog to move, okay, you want to be able to direct that dog and ensure the others stay there. So you can use the dog's name as a precursor to that. So it could be, all the dogs would be sitting, so you'd say sit. My cues would be ear, sit, or wait there, and then I would use the dog's individual name. So it would be, for example, Sonic, here, come, sit, etc., or fire, here, and I'd redirect with my hand, so I'm giving her a supporting information, so that that then explained to all my other dogs that one dog is moving and everybody else has to remain in situ. That's a really helpful skill to have. So if there's situations where you want to manipulate or move one dog or gain control of one dog, it doesn't mean that when you call the dogs, they're all going to break, okay? So you want to make sure that you have that ability to control one dog, okay? So we want to also, when you own dogs and you train dogs, there's three things that are always going to be in play: management, training, and ignoring some behavior, okay? And that